Hi, my darlings. I'm Sophie Darling, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're reacting to episode 15 of series 1 of Vinland Saga. Episode 14 was a rough one. It was interesting in that I like how the author wanted to make it very apparent, very clear who these people actually are, because we've had a couple of episodes where we've kind of maybe related to them quite a bit. We've rooted for them. We've almost begun to forget how brutalistic they can be. And then we come across this episode and we see the very evident violence that comes with pillaging and invasion, and just why they were so feared by the Anglo-Saxons, because this is what happens when they come to your village. And Asgard's connection to his descendant Artorius, this benevolent kind king, was sort of almost romanticizing Asgard in a sense, making him seem like he will be this noble figure. And episode 14 just nipped that very brutally in the bud. That he is as far away from noble and benevolent as can be. Asgard interests me though. He still fascinates me because he's a very hard character to pin down. And I think that comes with the fact that he is very morally grey. It's hard to kind of read him. He's not quite a villain, but I wouldn't go as far to say that he's an anti-hero either. He kind of falls into like this nihilistic middle ground where you can't put him in either category, because once you pin him into a category, he does something that shifts him out of it and into another category. He's a bit like liquid. He's very fluid and slippery, and I think that's supposed to be the case. I think he's supposed to be complex and that we never fully understand his motives and intentions because they're constantly shifting and changing, and we kind of just have to roll along with it as well. There is just something that I really wanted to mention, because I was kind of having a conversation on Patreon in relation to episode 14. The joys of having a doctorate in English is that I am much better writing my thoughts out and dissecting it that way than I am speaking off the cuff. If you could see the uncut footage of all of this, you would actually be ashamed. I look very put together because I retake time and time again to try and get the words out that I want to say, because reacting off the cuff without a script is incredibly hard. And I don't think people realize how hard it is until you're actually the one doing it, especially when you're trying to analyze an episode based off a single watch. I haven't rewatched it enough to be able to do like a thorough deep dive. So it's not easy to do. It's very daunting, and I trip up over my words all the time, or the point I want to make kind of isn't as clear as I would like it to be if I had sat down and write it out. But alas, I do not have time to do that. If I was doing video essays, yes. But if I was going to do deep dives, you wouldn't get as much content as you're getting. You would essentially get maybe like 1 or 2 videos a week, which isn't a lot. So I wouldn't want to let you guys down, but I do hope to do video essays at some point, but they are very time consuming. So we will see. But one of the things I wanted to discuss is Anne's reaction to her father's story versus that of the younger siblings. And it's this distinction between Anne understanding what her father says versus the younger children who don't quite grasp it. So before anyone jumps down my throat, I am not saying that religion is a fairy tale. I believe everyone has the right to believe in a higher being and to pursue their religion. I don't condemn anyone for that. So don't get it twisted when I say that, similar to fairy tales, religion offers a structure of morality. So fairy tales were designed as children's stories to teach children right and wrong, to instill moral sensibilities about how to be and behave in the world, and to also establish a sense of fear that they wouldn't go and do something stupid. When religion became more institutionalized and more popular and more accessible to the masses, folklore and fairy tales became less popular in that they weren't used as much in order to teach children a moral lesson. Religion became sort of the de facto moral teacher. So religion offers this structure of morality, and we see that taking place with the father distinguishing what happens to those who do good and those that do bad. And it's to instill this idea that in order to achieve sanctuary in heaven, you have to never commit a sin. You have to never tell a lie. You have to be well behaved, well managed young children. And we can see that the younger children, they kind of grasp it, but they're not as fearful as Anne is. Anne really takes it to heart. So what we're seeing play out is sort of this moral dilemma and guilt that occurs in children when they begin to feel the weight of religion and that fear of being damned and going to hell. So the younger you are, the less you really perceive how your acts are wrong. But as you get older, you begin to establish more of a moral consciousness, especially when you are raised in a religious household and you have these stories to form the structure of your childhood and your understanding of morality and what is good and what is evil, what is right and what is wrong. We see in that scene that Anne is almost uncomfortable and fearful because we know that she's stolen the ring. We know that she's already wrestling with this idea that she is damned and possibly going to be separated from her family because of what she's done, that her family are good and they're going to go to heaven, and she is bad and she's going to go to hell, and she doesn't want to be removed from them. So she's able to kind of rationalize the story, and it only emphasizes the dread and guilt that she feels. Whereas the younger children listen to the story, they kind of take it on board, but they're more entertained by it. They're not as conscious of the ramifications for when they get older. So the moral weight hasn't quite hit them in the same way that it does Anne, because Anne is older. She understands it more. So, towards the end, when Anne talks about feeling elated, she feels relieved, essentially. It is because she has seen someone commit a more atrocious sin than what she has done. And they have no fear of consequence. And this lightens the burden that she feels because her act, by comparison, is so small as to be barely a sin. So Anne grows up in a very small village, very isolated. Religion is very heavily indoctrinated. So to her, this act of theft would be seen as this huge moral dilemma, would be seen as something severe and worthy of being condemned to hell for. She's never seen the brutality of the world. So this seems like such a huge moral dilemma to her, but when she witnesses her people being killed, including her family, in cold blood, it kind of offers her that wider perspective that in the grand scheme, the theft of a single ring can never compare to the magnitude of killing an entire village. And this elation is because she can finally let go of that guilt that she's been harboring, and that she is not the reason for her family being damned, because this greater evil is not something that she has cast upon her family through her act. This greater evil has happened because humanity in itself is prone to leaning towards being evil. And the father also has a conversation about the Danes being the true evil, because in their mind, they are heathens. So they would be seen as devilish, as unlike them, they're invading their country, and therefore they're going to instill this horror of them into their children and see them as akin to devils. It's coming to understand that the theft of a ring wouldn't have damned her family. It's just that unfortunately there are evil people in this world, and you cannot control when that evil strikes. It's almost random. It is chance. If they had been in a different village at a different time, this likely wouldn't have happened. So it's this understanding that she has sort of no control over damning her family. That control has been taken out of her hands. So I'm sure that she probably will still wrestle with the fear that if she hadn't stolen the ring, she wouldn't have damned her family. But I also think the bigger aspect of the message of that episode is the understanding that not even God could protect them from the evil of humanity, and accepting that sometimes even God himself is powerless. And that allows her to find a way to push forward and forgive herself for what she has done. This understanding that if God can't stop these evil people, if he is powerless to do so, then she is not the reason for her family's death. She cannot have damned them because even God himself cannot stop this evil from happening. So what's one girl going to do? What power does she have to prevent this atrocity from happening? But it was such a good episode. I feel like I didn't really say much. I was just kind of blown away by the gravity of the whole situation, the foreboding, the fact that we knew it was going to happen and we were willing for it to not happen. We're almost like Anne in that we're just watching this happen and we are powerless. We can't prevent it. No matter how much we might want this to be stopped, there's nothing that we can do. Much in the same way that Anne now probably feels about God, in that God may not have wanted this to happen, that even God himself didn't have the ability to prevent this evil from being committed. But without further ado, we're going to get into episode 15 because, again, I don't want to ramble for too long in my intros because I want to keep them short so that we can have more time in the outros for our discussions.
そうか。クヌートは死んだか。
I mean, no.
正確には行方不明とのことです。
Is he just presuming?
ラグナル隊はクヌート王子の救出を試み、マールバラにてトロケル軍と交戦。
Yeah, they don't know that they're with Ascalon.
生き延びて救助を待っておるやもしれんが。王陛下におかれましては、ご心注意かばかりか。
He doesn't seem very worried.
クヌートがもし兄のハラルドを上回る器量を持ち合わせていたならば、行方知れずになどならずに済んだかもしれんな。
Are we going to eventually see Harold and Canute's relationship with his brother? But it's really strange. His dad kind of seems to give a fuck about him sometimes, and then other times is like, well, if he had been more talented, he wouldn't be in the position that he's in. He wouldn't have gone missing. He would have made a name for himself. But then in previous episodes, he's like, my precious son, we must do everything we can to get him back. I don't know how to read this man. This man creeps me out a lot of the time. Focal! We're back. I love him.
お前は戦士の心さえ凍らせるのか。
We're back to Best Boy.
大将、焼き豚と煮豚、どっち食う？
両方。
I have one of everything. He's a growing boy. He needs all the food.
で王子に逃げられたのは痛かったな。
いやいや、あんたが渡したんだろう。
Yeah, to
王子は
Thorfinn.
腰抜けだけど使い道はあったんだよな。ビール、樽で持ってきて。
すいません。ビール樽でつい。
Is the keg just for Focal? No one else, just for him.
この町を食い尽くす気か。どうせ王子取られんだったらイングランド軍にくれてやってもよかったな。
戦争が下火になると、そうやってまた火種を探す。
He needs something to make him feel alive.
戦士は戦場にいてこそ戦士だ。
今度、ウェセックスの賢人会議でな、スベン王がブレトワルダとして認められるそうだ。
それって全面降伏じゃん。
だな、デンマークがイングランドを飲み込むんだ。
I mean, prevents further casualties.
どうする？玉砕覚悟でスベン王軍に勝ち込むかい？
俺は喧嘩は大好きだが負けるのは大嫌いだ。
He's gonna rally the English.
勝ちに行く。
Like, I won't lose.
世界中がずーっと喧嘩してたらいいのにな。
I love how, like, the only reason he does this is for the thrill of it. No other reason.
修道士たちか。そっちも見張っとけ。
許したまえ。だとよ。
Just because you don't feel guilt doesn't mean that they don't. Again, it's the conflict of religion and cultural differences.
この者たちを殺めし者たちの魂をお救いください。私どもの罪をお許しください。
I really like the priest. I feel like he's one of my favorites.
父よ。私の声はあなたの耳に届いているのでしょうか。あなたは あなたの姿に似せて私たちをお作りになった。でもその力を分けてはくださらなかった。何のために無力な私たちを試されるのですか。私はあなたの愛を疑っています。やめよ!
Oh, that's the first time I've ever heard him be angry. But I can understand where he's coming from in terms of saying, you know, I doubt your love, because how can you love both equally? I think he's sort of wrestling with his anger and resentment towards the Danes and how they just massacred this village, despite his pleas and protests for them to not do so. He interceded on their behalf despite knowing it could cost him his life, because it's that willingness to sacrifice yourself for others, even strangers, even your enemies, that is sort of the ultimate love. And I think for him, he's sort of dealing with the ramifications, dealing with this somewhat resentment. He wants to forgive them, but he's finding it hard to do so. And it's causing sort of a conflict internally within him, where he's beginning to sort of doubt if God is actually truly there, if God actually truly cares. Because in not being bestowed upon the abilities of a God, he feels powerless to prevent the evil that happens in this world. He feels like he can't convince people to take seriously the message that he's preaching. And as well, I think if you're struggling with questions around your religion, you also then struggle to promote it. You struggle to want to educate others about God and what it means to you, because if you can't even believe the words yourself, how can you expect other people to believe what you're preaching and telling them? This whole I'm beginning to doubt you're there. It's similar to how Anne was questioning sort of the distance between humanity and God. How can you be expected to live a pure life to obtain the right to enter heaven, but yet the expectation seems so large and the pressure so significant that it feels almost like you'd never achieve it, that God has set an impossible task before you. And the priest probably feels similar, that the task that he's faced with seems immeasurable in the face of what he's witnessing, in the face of non-believers, in the face of having to love those that would happily kill him. How can you listen and abide by a God that you feel has just abandoned you to fend for yourself? But I don't think this is going to sway him. I think he's still going to be resolute in his religion, but I also think it's healthy to have those moments of questioning for any religion. I think those moments are healthy in that they either bring you closer to your religion in finding answers through reaching out to those within your church or community, or even seeking out the answers from holy texts. But as well, I think for those that begin to disenfranchise themselves, it is also healthy to question. It's healthy to not just blindly believe everything that's placed in front of you. I think the only way that you grow as a person and to strengthen your beliefs is to challenge them first and foremost, to find a way to come back to the religion that you love and hold dear by pulling away from it initially and then finding a way to reconcile yourself with it, finding a way to commit to this ultimate belief. But that is the first time we've ever seen Canute be incredibly frustrated and angry. So this is going to be very enlightening.
そなたそれでもキリスト教徒か。恐れを知るがいい。我らが父の愛を疑うことなどあってはならぬ。
Even Thorfinn's like, we've not seen this side of him before.
我が子を愛おしく思わぬ父親などいない。
Oh, this emotional distress that they're maybe hinting at is in relation to his father and the complicated dynamic between them. Because the idea of the priest doubting the father and the father having this unbound and infinite love for all his children is something that he clings on to because it's reminiscent to believing that his own father loves him. If he doubts that God loves all his children equally, then he would then have to wrestle with this idea that his own father doesn't love him. He almost uses God's love for all his children as a way to console himself against maybe the fears that his own father doesn't love him. If God loves all his children, then as a father, every father loves his children, regardless of how they may behave towards them. So hearing the priest doubt that makes him not only begin to question God's endless love, but by extension, his own father and whether his father actually loves him. And we know that there is not a easy relationship there. We know it's quite tense. We know that Canute had to stay quiet for fear that he would maybe be killed or used and abused by the people within their court, which is why he's so cautious in how he speaks, because he knows that words can lead to you being killed, could lead to you being expelled, outcasted, turned against. So he kept himself quiet, he tucked himself away. But we also know that his father's reaction to Canute differs from episode to episode. It's almost as if he doesn't quite know how to engage with his son, but Canute's anger at the priest questioning whether God truly loves his children strikes a nerve, because God has to love his children because he's a father and all fathers love their children. But if God can't love all his children, then that means not all fathers love their children, and he has to come to this understanding that maybe his own father doesn't love him. Which I kind of maybe suspected, because I thought it was a bit weird that he left him in London with so few soldiers, expecting him to take it over. And it was framed as this, oh, it's to give him a name. If he wants to be a king, he has to build this reputation. But at the same time, it felt almost like he was sentencing him to potential death. Your father loved you so much, Thorfinn. This is not the life that Thor's wanted for him.
軍の要請が来ておりまして
Why do I feel like this is a trap, the way they're rubbing their hands?
おおよそ100から200
Wait, no, it's
すでに
Anne!
近隣の兵が向かっておるそう
They've
ですが
informed Thorkel
ここは不明
where
届く
Askeladd
届ける
is.
閣下にもぜひ
Because Anne's made it to this stronghold and told them about what happened. Oh, it's not going to be a secret for long, is it?
見せかけて陸路でゲインズ払い雪に振り込められて休息中ってとこが
Oh, his sparks
コルフィン
reignited.
とクヌートだ
I love that it's not even Askeladd. No mention of Askeladd. It's just Thorfinn, my boy, my fellow warrior, and Canute, because obviously he's like, well, I should have just given Canute to the English. I shouldn't have just give it up so easily, but also Thorfinn. But he gets to reunite with his little friend, so he's excited. He gets to go and challenge another warrior. Askeladd, he's like, meh. Forgive and forget. Leave Askeladd alone.
弁当の用意頼むぜ
Little
500
lunch boxes.
人だよ5日分でいいや
That's a lot. They're gonna have no food.
面白いぞこの喧嘩うまくすると
I love
まだ
Thorkel.
まだ楽しめるかもな
There's just something about him. He's so endearing. He's a menace as well to society.
林伝いに東へ包囲戦
Oh,
を残してる
great! All three of them
嗅ぎつけられる
appearing.
のが早いな
Love that. Was this necessary? I have to question the art direction. Was it necessary for them to be pissing while having this conversation? I guess so.
よっぽど電人が憎いと見えるそんな急がねと脱出の機会を失う
Must really hate the Danes. It's literally Thorkel looking for a challenge. Doesn't even hate the Danes. He just wants
の体制を取らせろ
something to give him a thrill, to make him feel alive. Nothing quite sparks that in him other than battle.
ついでにあれやるぞ
What you discussed? Interesting. What did you discuss?
あいつの計画が立て続けに狂うなんて初めてだぜ。
Oh. Oh, there's a little bit of doubt there about Askeladd.
おおうまそうなウサギだな
That's unusual.
肉だけの飯は良くないぞ野菜と一緒に煮込めそのウサギは
スープにしてやろ
うるせえな。俺の飯をどう食おうが俺の勝手だ。
う。
You're such a little brat sometimes.
ほれ、来い。殿
Go
下
and make
そら豆
friends.
とキャベツとウサギです。
He's so pretty, isn't he?
ご苦労。血を抜いて内臓を洗っておけ。
He's becoming a lot more confident in his speech. I wonder if he invited Thorfinn here because he knows that Thorfinn's good for Canute. Canute speaks up more around Thorfinn.
どうした？遠慮するな。そなたのウサギだ。
Been a while since he's had something like this.
うまかろうが。次は鹿でも取ってこい。
貴族ってのは食うばかりだと思ってたぜ。
趣味だ。普段は作らぬし、
Oh, cute.
そなたも口外してはならぬ
He
ぞ。
likes to look out for
別に悪
himself.
くねえだろ。
タラの料理を作った時な、父王陛下に持って行ったことがある。
Oh. Was he berated? Oh, he's so young.
だが陛下は、召し上がるどころか、が卑しき奴隷の真似事をするな、と。
Oh,
Eli, look at
bless.
料理などせぬことになっている。王の子にはこんな技など必要ないのだ。
But he wanted to. He wanted to use his hands. What a good boy Canute is.
戦が終わったら鶏料理でも作ってお持ちしましょう。きっと喜んでくだ
He
さい
doesn't
ま
want to
す。
be solely reliant on others. He wants to fend for himself. He's going to be a good king one day. The kind, benevolent king that people need.
覚えておられますか？
ああ、あれはうまかったな。煮こぼりか。
He's like, I
なるほ
can't
どな。
stop eating. It's so good.
ラガ、
Oh,
バカ野郎、伝令だ、伝令。
boy is fast.
東の森で戦闘がおっ始まりました。
They're going to try and
大した兵数じゃ
separate
なさそうです
Canute
が
from
一応
Ragnar,
用
aren't
心して
they?
ください。
なぜバレた？
知るかよなの。
なんということだ。村人たちを皆殺しに
For
してまで。
nothing. For nothing. They used it as a justification to protect and save the prince. But it was for nothing. Because they missed one. There was an oversight.
アシェラと連れてこい。今すぐだ。
There is
今
some
は前線で
plan
指揮を取ってます。話があるなら
in
ご自分
relation
で
to
電話でいい
Canute
んじゃない
because
ですか？
Canute is part of him
案内しますよ。
gaining
け
financial gain.
今日こそ剣にかけて愚かさを思い知らせてやるわい。
I feel like Ragnar's being led into a trap.
時の声はあっちから聞こえるぞ。
They're separating him from Canute
やっと気づいたか。
so he
無理なん
can't
だ。
intervene.
貴様ら何を？
You left Canute alone. Oh my god!
貴様ら。
すまねえな、とんがり頭。アシュラットの命令なんでね。
Of course it is. He's not gonna go down easy. Not when his prince
やるかい？
depends upon him.
俺らは構わねえけどよ。どうせ助からねえ。
アシェラとここへ呼び、大事な話がある。王子殿下に関わることだ。直接話す。伺いましょう。その遺言。
He's already there. He was watching. While other people get their hands dirty, he's hanging out, overseeing it all.
スープが冷めてしまったじゃないか。
He knows something's not right.
あの腰抜け王子をよくぞ今日まで生かしてくださった。
He's not a
そして
coward.
貴殿の死がさらなる成長を促すでしょう。お役目は今日から私が引き継ぎます。
貴様の神に誓い、不足なくわしの後を引き継ぎ、何があろうとクヌート殿下をお守りすると。
He's not protecting him though. He's gonna leverage him
何
to
が
the
あろう
highest
と
bidder.
クヌート殿下をお守りし、
His promises
戦士
mean
ラグナ
jack
の
shit.
意義ある死に報い。
口をしやく。貴様などに殿下を託そうとは。
血をだいぶ失っておられる。
I'm gonna cry, aren't I?
心構えをしておき。イエリングの帝臣たちは今、時代のデンマーク王の座をめぐって大きく二派に分かれておる。クヌート殿下は一方の派閥の旗
The other
頭に
his
されて
brother.
おる。 もう一方はクヌート様の
Harold.
兄君のハラルド様だ。関心どもの勝手な勢力争いだ。そして王陛下はデンマーク王国の分裂を恐れたのだろう。おそらく一つの決断を内心に下された。
スベン王が王子を。
こたび王陛下が殿下を戦場へ伴ったのは殿下を戦死させるため。
I said as much. Asgard's gonna realize he can't leverage him back to his dad because his dad wanted him to die anyway.
わしの弟段取りをつけて
Everything he did was for Canute. He truly loved Canute.
頼む。最後に一目でいい。一目でかい。お別れよ。
ダメだ。
殿下。
That's so
戦が
cruel.
終わったら一緒に鶏料理でも。きっと王陛下も喜んでください。
Poor Canute. Ugh. It's just so cruel that you can't even allow him to see Canute one last time. He's been there for Canute. He's essentially his father figure. And it all comes back to that conversation they were having about how Canute will never fend for himself and stand up for himself if Ragnar's around because Ragnar weakens him. And I had agreed because Ragnar was kind of speaking for him and was kind of not allowing Canute to stand on his own 2 feet and to learn to be independent. He wasn't willing to push the chick from the nest, essentially, but I don't think that meant that he deserved to die. I don't think his death should be the catalyst for changing Canute into whatever Asgard expects him to be, into being a king, into being a warrior. I think there was other ways that it could be done, but obviously Asgard isn't looking at it as the best interest of Canute. He's looking at it in the best interest of Asgard. He's looking at it in how can I leverage my influence over Canute for my own gain, for my own benefit? How can I manipulate and influence this prince? And he can't do it unless Ragnar's dead, because Ragnar is who Canute trusts most of all. He's Canute's closest ally, and he would never allow anything bad to happen to Canute. So they have to get rid of him in order for Asgard to be able to use Canute however he wants. But poor Canute, losing the closest thing he has to a father, the one person that truly has his back and understood what he's gone through and was willing to support his passion and endeavors for cooking and being self-sufficient and his passion for food. He was willing to encourage it and support it. And yes, I do think there were aspects of Ragnar that were not good for Canute in the long run, that made Canute look weak, especially the fact that he would speak for Canute upon Canute's requests. He probably thought he was helping him rather than hindering him, but in this type of environment, it's cutthroat. It's not beneficial to have him look weak. But that doesn't mean that I think Ragnar deserves to die. And I feel like I accidentally foreshadowed this when I said, oh, I wonder if he's going to learn from Askeladd how to motivate and influence others through words. And here we are, Askeladd trying to take Ragnar's place so that he can be close to Canute and leverage him for his own gain and benefit. I wonder if this is only going to drive Thorfinn and Canute closer, because out of everyone, Thorfinn is probably the closest that Canute has to someone who's trustworthy. It's someone that doesn't bullshit him, that doesn't flatter him, someone that he can speak openly with without judgment or condemnation. The fact that he's telling him about his childhood, about his father disliking the food that he made because he's not a slave, he's not a servant. A prince shouldn't have to do that. Prince shouldn't be serving others. He's trying to harden him. He's cruel because his son also is doing what would be seen as a feminine. I say feminine because, men love to cook too, and men are very good at cooking, but cooking and serving would be seen as a very feminine attribute, which would only heighten his ideas of Canute being weak and inefficient and ineffective. And then because Denmark has been split into these two factions, with each faction backing a prince to become the next king, in his mind, he's backing the stronger of the two. He's backing Harold, his older son. And the only way to prevent civil war, civil conflict, is to get rid of the one that he views as the weaker one. And I said that earlier, that leaving him behind in London with so few soldiers felt like a death sentence. It felt like he was doing it intentionally. And I'm so glad that I was correct, because it was intentional. It was designed to get rid of him. It was designed to ensure that there is only one person left to inherit the throne, and not the weaker son that he has grown to despise. So when he's calling Canute his precious son and going on about how much he cares about him, you have to wonder, is he lying? Is he just making people think that he gives a shit because he knows it looks bad if he just outright admits that he left his son to die? Because there's going to be people that are serving him that probably support Canute and his pursuit to become king, who would likely condemn him for leaving Canute behind and would turn against him. So I think when he's going on about him being his precious boy and doing everything he can to get him back, it is solely to appeal to the masses. It's to meet the expectation that this is what a father would do. It's not because he genuinely gives a shit. It is because he knows to not act that way would be suspicious and would probably raise some eyebrows and cause some gossip to happen. He has to act like the caring father, despite the fact that he doesn't give two shits. He doesn't care. He's back the son that he thinks will be the more powerful and beneficial one, and as a consequence is willing to sacrifice his other child. He's such an ass. He is absolutely despicable, but it's the fact that Canute is going to have to come to terms with Ragnar dying and not really knowing the truth. But I think Canute is smarter than Askeladd gives him credit. I think he thinks that Canute is going to be this weak, malleable prince who's easily influenced, easily manipulated, easily made to do whatever he wants him to do. But Canute is not that way. He is very quick to speak up when he disagrees with something. We are seeing Canute become more comfortable. We're seeing Canute speak up and not be so scared as to shy away and hide behind Ragnar. Like, he was very confident in speaking with Thorfinn. He also condemned and called out the priest, even to the point that Thorfinn was quite shocked to hear him so blatantly lash out, because that's not what he's seen so far, and it's not what others have seen. I don't think he is going to be as easy to manipulate as Askeladd thinks he is. I think he doesn't quite know what he's got himself into, but Canute is a stronger character than we realize. I was quite harsh on him. I thought he is quite weak. Is he really going to be capable of becoming a king? Weak kings are often killed and overthrown, but he has begun to really grow on me, especially when you understand the perspective of him as a traumatized child and what he's gone through, and this understanding and knowledge that his own father doesn't like him. I think he knows and suspects it, but doesn't want to fully admit it because it's still his father. He wants to believe that a father can love their child unconditionally. He wants to believe that that love from being connected by blood transcends all, but it doesn't. And that's why he's so angered by the priest doubting that the father loves humanity. Because if God can't love his children, his own creation, then how can his father love him, who is also his own creation, by being his blood? It reiterates to him this feeling of guilt and worry that his father does actually wish for his downfall. I think he's not stupid. He knows that there is resentment and anger there, but he's almost tried to convince himself that there has to be love too, that his father can't hate him because he made him, he is part of him. So how can a father hate his child? A father has to love his children. So he's upset by this idea that a father can't love their children, e.g., God can't love those that he created, because in doubting the existence of God's love, it's forcing Canute to doubt his own convictions that his father must love him in some way. It's forcing him to come to the realization that he knows deep down that his father resents him, that his father doesn't care for him. And it also now makes sense if we think back to the early episodes where Ragnar is saying to Canute when they're based in London before Thorkill attacks, we'll bide our time and then we can leave. We just need to keep biding our time. We just need to keep holding. We just need to keep waiting. They didn't attack. And that's because he already knew that this was designed to kill Canute. It was designed for him to die in battle, to die a warrior, so that they could honor his name and he could have the credit of being this brave prince whilst being the orchestrator of his death. He didn't have him killed through like assassination or anything, but he did plan it for him to die. That's why he brought him here, to put him in harm's way, so that he can still have his son honored and not discredited by being killed by like an assassin, and it curbs all gossip, and he's still renowned as this brave warrior prince, but at the same time it is still his plot against his own son. And Ragnar biding their time is because he knows that that's what he's doing, and he's not allowing Canute to fall into that trap. He doesn't want Canute to be harmed, which is why he's telling Askeladd about what's been going on and the two factions that are divided, because Askeladd needs to be aware so that he also doesn't fall into that trap. But I don't know if Askeladd can be trusted. He's obviously doing this for his own gain, as always. So I think believing that he will do what he can to protect Canute is rather short-sighted, but I don't think he does it because he trusts Askeladd. I think he does it because he knows he doesn't have a choice. It's Askeladd or nothing. He has to have the prince protected somehow, and until Askeladd can gain what he wants from Canute, or from someone willing to buy Canute, he is going to protect him. He is going to keep him safe because that is his long-term investment. So yeah, I wonder then if the emotional distress that Canute was wrestling with is the knowledge that his own father wants him dead. Either way, amazing, amazing episode. Just completely, again, sucker punched me emotionally. I feel like this is going to happen quite a lot in this show. That it's going to sucker punch you emotionally. I am kind of concerned for the next 10 episodes, 11 episodes that we have left, because I feel like it's only going to get worse from here. And not worse in terms of writing, but like worse in terms of like emotional gut punch and emotional impact. But God, this show is stunning. It is absolutely beautiful. One thing I have been wondering about is whether series 1 will just be Thorfinn staying close to Askeladd because he's waiting for the moment to get his revenge, and that this is going to be focused on his rage and that cycle and desire and struggle. But maybe in the finale he comes to some realization which makes him go home, and then series 2 would pick up with Thorfinn trying to fit back in to family life, trying to adjust, trying to become maybe the man that his father wanted him to be. I feel like the finale could end with Thorfinn coming to the realization that he needs to go back, that he can't continue on this journey because it's not good for him. It's not healthy. It's only harming him further in the process. And therefore, series 1 ends with this decision for him to leave and return back home. And then series 2 kind of explores that journey of becoming the man that his father always wanted him to be and trying to let go of the anger and resentment that he feels. I'm just thinking that that's potentially how the narrative might play out, because I thought by now if he was going to go home, it would have already happened. So it looks as if, at least within the first series, he's not going to go home. But I think he is going to have to go home at some point. He is going to have to return back to his mother and his sister. So I think potentially that journey would be better suited for series 2, because then they have more episodes to lay out that narrative progression of Thorfinn forgiving himself and coming to terms with the trauma and loss of his father, and the messages that his father tried to teach him, of coming to that understanding that he needs to be a better man, that his anger is only going to lead to a cycle of violence and a cycle of revenge. But we shall see. I'm still heartbroken that his last image is of Canute as like a little boy waving happily at him. That's his last memory of him, because Canute was like a son. I'm gonna have to stop because I'm gonna keep crying, and I decided to watch this before watching the other 2 things I have to film today, and that was a grave, grave mistake, because now it's going to be very evident that I've cried. Either way, phenomenal episode. If you enjoyed this react, please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment below to help boost this video into the algorithm. And until next episode, bye!